Hey everybody, how you doing? Dave Fennoy here, and let me adjust my microphone, make sure that it's where it should be. Welcome to another Ask Dave Fennoy Anything on this Wednesday, Hump Day. Um, got some notes before I introduce my guest today. We've got some guests coming up next week. Elaine Craig, who literally wrote the book on voiceover. When I started my voiceover career, she was already teaching. She doesn't look like she's that old, but she's been in the business a long time, knows where all the bodies are buried. We'll be talking with her next Wednesday. My buddy Joe Cipriano, he'll be joining us on the 5th of August. And Tasia Valenza, J.B. Blanc, and a few other folks coming up in subsequent weeks. But today, I have a special treat, and I have a guest that she's just amazing. Let me just bring her on here. Hey, Carrie Olsen.
Hey,
Woo.
Dave.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Real good. I mentioned in my little promo piece that my introduction to you was at a voiceover conference. I think it was VO Atlanta, as a matter of fact. And you were doing a workshop on working in the narration business, working corporate narration, e-learning, how to find clients, and how to bill. And I often get questions from people, I've got this job they want me to do. It's a narration, and what do I charge them? And, things that are union and a little more along the lines of the kind of narration I've done, I know how to bill. But we're going to get to that. But I want to ask you some other questions first, so don't forget that. How did you get started in voiceover?
Yeah, so I got started in voiceover. My story is I was listening to a podcast on my way to work. So I was working in e-learning, and that's why a lot of what I talk about now that I'm in voiceover as a voice actor is e-learning. So I was an e-learning designer
Mm.
and was commuting to work
Mm-hmm.
and had just had my first daughter. And I heard an interview of a voiceover talent, Allison Steele, who works out of LA, and she was talking
Oh, yeah.
about her job and what she does. And it was really intriguing. And I wanted to be able to work from home. And I thought it sounded really fun. And I thought, well, I'm going to look into this. And I had done some voiceover work prior because my husband and I had podcasted and I'd narrated some of my own courses. So as an e-learning designer, but I started getting training and started auditioning, started booking work, and eventually had a demo made, started reaching out to agents, went through the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
and started just building up my business from scratch, really,
Yeah.
and have
Now,
loved it.
you're in Kansas.
I'm in Missouri.
Missouri. Yeah,
Yeah, but Kansas City, Missouri.
Kansas City, Missouri. Okay, I meant Kansas City, but um,
It's like a mile from Kansas.
yeah, there you go. Um, you're in Kansas, not necessarily the hub of voiceover work. When we think voiceover work, more often than not, we're thinking Los Angeles, New York, Chicago. There's some other cities that are doing okay. But I think if people were making a list, Kansas City would be low down on that list. And yet, after how many years doing this, you're having a successful career?
It's been about 6 years,
Only 6 years.
only 6 years.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that. And I just want to invite some people to start asking some questions. Before we went on live, I mentioned to you that I kind of break voiceover up now into two worlds. One is fairly high profile, and the other is not so high profile. It's not that one is better than the other, but if you're living in the high profile world, which I've pretty much had my career in that world where things are broadcast on television, on radio, cartoons, movies, video games, that kind of thing, where people may find out who you are. Um, it, that's the world that I've lived in. But there is a whole other world, not high profile, of corporate narration, e-learning, explainer videos, uh, museum narration, things like that. That money is just as green, and you can do from anywhere. And is this the world you live in mostly?
That's definitely what my business has looked like over the last few years. I have started doing more promo in the last few years and some more broadcast things, but definitely the first year, first 2 years, I remember the second year of my business, I did a hardcore e-learning marketing campaign, and that's where a lot of my work came from. And I still have repeat clients today from that big marketing push for e-learning, and I've gotten to do work for places like Disney and Hertz and AT&T and big brand names doing e-learning, Taco Bell,
Hmm.
and from marketing to these companies.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on one second. For some reason, my comments aren't showing up. Let me. Oh, I hate when this happens. I didn't do this. Why did they do this? Da 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 da. Options, comments and reactions. Well, they're supposed to be. Whoops.
I can see them if you want me to
Oh,
read.
you can. You know what? Great. Because ordinarily they come up, and for some reason, they did not. Comments not available, just in friends mode. I should not be in friends mode. Well, if you can see a good comment for me, or
Sure.
question.
We've got some that someone wants to know if you're in a band.
I used to be in a band. Interesting that they should ask, because I started off as a musician. I was a actor as a kid and a musician. Went to school for theater, but dropped out and went on the road as a musician for a few years before I went back to school in music. And then somehow I end up acting again in voiceover. Life will take you places. But I'm really interested in questions for you and about how did you find clients when you were starting your career? What was your campaign like?
Yeah, so I started with who do I want to do work for? My thought process was there are companies all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of them, especially the larger companies, have e-learning training. And so I thought, who do I want to contact? And then if I was that e-learning designer working for that company, because I'd been an e-learning designer, I thought, what would I want to hear? What type of outreach would I want from a voiceover talent if they were reaching out to me? So I did a lot of research and I found people's email addresses. I wrote them personal emails, so I didn't use templates or anything like that. I spent a long time doing this research, so it's
Mm-hmm.
not the kind of thing where you go out and buy a template or copy and paste what you're saying. I did personalized emails
Mm-hmm.
and attached my demo, and that was a big part too, is having what I considered to be, a at least at the time, a fairly unique e-learning demo, because I didn't want something that sounded like everyone else's demo. I wanted something that sounded like me and that kind of uh, exemplified my personality. And I was big on learner retention. So as an e-learning designer, that's something that all e-learning designers know. They want their learners to not only go through the training, you want them to retain that information and then be able to actually apply that so that change happens.
Okay,
And
okay. Learning retention. How is it that you? I mean, I often say repetition is how we learn. When I'm repeating things to students that know this, know this, know this, um, how do you incorporate learning retention into the program that you're working on?
have you ever taken a training where the voiceover was putting you to sleep?
Yeah.
And so that I presented myself as the antithesis to that. So I'm going to read your scripts as if it's a story and it's going to be engaging. Your learners are going to want to, or they're going to want to listen and click next so they
Hmm.
can see what's on the next page. So, more inflection, more personality, more empathy and caring. So I would use that language in reaching out to these e-learning designers.
That very much seems like, for someone who's just starting out to make that decision that, oh, I am going to go down this road. How did you have the confidence, the wherewithal to do that?
Oh gosh, confidence, or was it just I don't know, ignorance and and high hopes. I think I put myself in a spot where I remember describing it to my husband as a ferocious marketing campaign. I decided I wanted to succeed at this and I wanted to book this work. And I thought about where is my place in this industry. And because I came from e-learning, I thought I can carve a space out here
Hmm.
and I'm going to try to do it in my own way. So it was taking a risk. There was no blueprint, but it worked out.
Oh, okay. Um, I went to your webpage and you have moved, well, I won't say moved on, but you have expanded beyond narration. You're represented by Atlas Talent, as I recall, in another talent agency. And so your demo is right there, ready for people to hear exactly where it should be. You've got a very good website.
Thank you.
You can see who you are. You can hear that demo right away. But I also notice you are a person who helps people learn how to do what you do. And I've often been critical of people who've only been in the business for a little while and now they're teaching. Um, and often I feel like it's because they're not making enough money, so they feel like, oh, I better do this. I don't get that sense from, especially since you offer your advice for free.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
somebody that's just getting into the business, what's your best advice for them?
well, I like to ask the question, you made the distinction early on about the two kind of tiers of this business. And so I like to ask people what their goals are and if they're wanting to do really high profile work versus if they want to do this
Mm-hmm.
as a hobby. I hesitate to say as a hobby, but if they're wanting to maybe I call it independent business owner
Mm-hmm.
when you are kind of doing the type of work that I was doing early on. So I'll ask about what their goals are. And if they're wanting to do the high profile, I encourage them to get coaching, get a lot of coaching. And eventually that leads to getting a demo made, not too soon, but waiting until you're ready for that,
Mm-hmm.
and your coach should validate that and have that demo made by a professional demo producer and send that out to agents. And then if they're wanting to do more of the independent business owner narration, explainer videos, that kind of thing, then I help them with their branding, marketing, and doing outreach.
Mm-hmm.
And auditioning is a part of all of the both of those worlds as well.
I often say our real job is to audition. And when I'm working, I'm just having fun. But the work is getting those auditions perfect. Um, sometimes when things go awry, you have to wing it. So I've got my phone here and I can see some questions. Um, Erica J. took a workshop with Carrie and she brought wealth of business VO knowledge to the table. Listen to her and follow her sage advice. Well, hitchhiking off of that, as a business, I know for myself, the business part comes tough to me. I have the artist's brain. Um, there are times in life I've tried to do things for money, and it was always a failure. But when I did things that I enjoy doing, money just came. But this is a business, and you do have to find clients, and you do have to take care of your money. So building your business, you already talked about the time you spent uh, finding out who you could work for. How did you find those people? I think I know the answer, but let me hear it from you.
You're referring to my marketing campaign and how I found those people?
Yes, yes.
I Googled the heck out of them.
Sometimes people will call me or get in touch with me with the simplest questions that it actually gets a little annoying that you want to look. Why are you even asking me this? All this information is on the internet. It's so easy to find. Using Mandy.com, using Google, using uh, just going to LinkedIn
Hmm.
and Googling producers of this, that, or the other that you're trying to do. Well, okay, let's get technical here for a minute. Everybody's got to have a home studio now. Were you a recording engineer when you got started?
No, I wasn't an anything engineer or an actor or anything when I got started.
Well, tell me
My
about your recording setup, your studio setup.
Sure, I've gone through a lot of different iterations. When I first started, my husband and I were podcasting. I had a podcast on the show Downton Abbey.
Oh.
Just just randomly one day my husband came home from work and I was at the microphone podcasting and he was, just surprised. But
Hmm.
so I was using an AKG Perception 120 microphone. It's a large diaphragm condenser. It's on the lower end of the price spectrum,
Hmm.
but that's what we used for podcasting. So that was my first voiceover mic. Um, let's see. Initially, we were it was the spare or the second bedroom of an apartment. We had sheets on the walls, so that's what we used for
Sound dampening?
podcasting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
The sheets on the
and
wall were to keep the sound from bouncing?
hmm
You probably would have done better with blankets, but I guess the sheets
yeah.
worked okay.
Yes, that was well, because the podcast, we weren't trying to be, super, it wasn't as important that it be just as tight
Pristine.
as it needs. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where I had my first lessons and where I recorded, after I got off my first coaching call, I recorded a little demo just for myself, just recording things. And so that was there. And then moved into my closet and ordered some foam tile, uh, some acoustic foam, and treated my space that way. And I recorded national radio commercials from my closet with acoustic foam on the walls. Then we went on a road trip and I recorded out of our travel trailer for a few months.
And how did you record in the travel trailer?
We converted the bathroom into a studio. So we had acoustic blankets. This is this is TMI.
Well, that's yeah. Well, and I can't just keep when you gotta go. But you're in the middle of a voiceover. What do you do then?
It was convertible, so we could tear it down. We had curtain rods that we could hang up, and then acoustic blankets that we hung up.
Hmm.
And then I had the Chaotica eyeball because it was less than ideal recording conditions. And then the microphone interface, everything right there. And my husband would always have to leave every time because the travel trailer's so small. I can't have people in there. Um, and then after that, not long after that, I actually got this booth. So this is a vocalbooth.com booth,
Uh-huh.
and it's what I've been using. Let's see, we moved to another apartment. I was out of the closet in that place until we got this booth.
Oh, okay. And what's your booth now?
It's a vocalbooth.com. So I think it's just a single wall and it has a window over here. It's pretty basic, but it's on the second floor of our house and it does a decent job of keeping the, stomping around of my little girls downstairs
Okay.
out.
Now you mentioned that you and your husband started with podcast. Does he do voiceover as well?
No, he's one of those that I think he tried one audition on an online casting site and didn't book it. And he was like, I'm done with this.
Okay. All right. Well, let me ask you this. Let's get into technique and what do you think it takes to be a good narrator for e-learning and corporate narration? What's your philosophy?
Yeah, so I think it's very similar to other genres. I feel like it takes empathy and being able to. One of the things I like to say when I'm doing a narration is you can take um, content that seems boring on the outset, because sometimes you're talking about HR benefits and things like that, and make it sound intriguing because this is important information
How
for
do you
these
how
people.
do you make HR benefits sound intriguing?
So a lot I'll talk about how not to. Maybe that's the easiest way, but um, just glazing over the words. I feel like it's kind of lazy reading. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of taking the time to immerse yourself in if there's any type of story at all, trying to
Mm-hmm.
immerse yourself in that story and being animated with it. I don't think that means being over the top, but I think it means being real and trying to talk conversationally. I've had a lot, or seen and heard a lot of e-learning voiceover that is that's just not conversational. And I prefer to do it in a conversational way as much as possible.
And you know what? Conversational is the name of the game. I think with everything in voiceover now. Did you ever have a problem not being conversational? Did you have to learn to become conversational, or did it just come naturally to you?
I think that because I was so green, I feel like that was something that I was doing almost accidentally when I first started auditioning because I didn't know any better, and so I wasn't trying to perform.
hmm
And going back and listening to some of those auditions now, a lot of them weren't good, but it came off as authentic because I didn't know what I was doing. So I feel like there have been ups and downs with that specific journey of being conversational because the more training you get more refined, and then you kind of have to find your new sweet spot of how to incorporate
of
your
reality
training.
is really what it is. It's being real.
Mhm.
Um, when we think of the professional voice, there's a little distance between uh, what that voice is saying and what that voice might be feeling. I feel uh, that, and sometimes we think our enunciation has to become so much more distinct and clear, uh, and so much so we don't sound real anymore.
Right.
So you decided, well, gee, I gotta be me. I gotta be me, and went that route. And one of the things I've kind of found out uh, sometimes with narration that if you're just a little off in how you're speaking, not necessarily stuttering like I'm stuttering right now, but everything is not in the same rhythm, and just
Exactly.
that you allow yourself to have a little bit of time for the thought to generate, to find your words, and then a flurry of words comes, and you reflect the feeling that you want your listener to have. That you find yourself, wow, I'm in a good narration here. That and being yourself. I think so many people and voiceover, like musicians, you'll have your favorite voiceover person and you'll listen to them and you'll imitate them, and there's things you can learn, phrasing and timing and that kind of thing. But you want to find you, so that
Absolutely.
works.
Yeah.
A couple people have said hello. Alan Adelberg says hello, Dave. Hello,
Hey, Alan.
Carrie. Um, da-da-da-da-da-da. Um, Randy Scott is watching. Okay. Um, how has this quarantine affected your business?
It hasn't very much. I feel like it's affected me personally and mentally more than it has the work. I think that for me and my business, when things first started happening and it was all new,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there was a little lull in auditions and in work because everyone was kind of waiting to see what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then the auditions for started coming in for the companies that were trying to reassure their audiences. And so there was a flurry of those. And I would say at this point, it's as far as auditions and work coming in, it's back to normal.
Back to normal. Now, how has the copy changed? Uh, uh,
So yeah, as far as commercial scripts, I think everyone who does commercial auditions remembers all of the "We're Here for You"
mm-hmm.
commercial
Yeah.
scripts and auditions that came in for a while there, and then I got more related to healthcare and things related to cybersecurity because everything was going online. So companies that their job is to protect people's either online identity or provide uh, whatever online services.
And Zoom had a huge problem with people sneaking into Zoom meetings.
Yes, I was on one of those and it was awful.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So cybersecurity, and we're all in this together, and we're here for you. Um, you've got kids. What's going to happen with school for you?
We, our kids' school, so I have a first grader. She's going into first grade, and most likely she'll have an all online option, at least for the first few weeks, if not the first trimester. Her school's in trimesters, but they've been sending out surveys trying to figure out the best thing to do. I really feel for all of the schools trying to make this decision and all of the parents. We're in such a fortunate situation where my husband and I work from home. So if we needed to,
Yeah.
we could homeschool and be here and not be as affected as someone who's an essential worker and needs to be outside of the house.
Well, the essential workers have been out there
Hmm.
anyway. It's interesting because so many of the essential workers seem to be the people who are being paid the least. But that's not voiceover. You've got a couple hellos. Let's see. Wow, Willard Morgan, old friend of mine. I haven't seen him in a while. Veronica, Jessica A. Morgan. Hello, Dave and Carrie. Um, and Bill Holmes. So we've got some voices. We've got some people listening. Now, what's the biggest mistake you think people who are knocking on the voiceover doors are making from the people you interact with?
The biggest mistake, I feel like the biggest mistake is a misconception or a misperception that voiceover is just talking and the voiceover is easy and that it's a way to make money really fast. And I feel like
A
that
get quick rich scheme.
exactly. And I feel like that's the biggest mistake is just that idea. And that's one of the reasons I like to talk about my the benefits of voiceover for me. Obviously, it's a job and I'm making
Mm-hmm.
money doing it, but I have grown so much as a person from doing voiceover. And I feel like the exercises that you do in voiceover coaching and just learning how to connect with a script and empathize and just, basic acting
Mm-hmm.
makes you a better person. And so those are the things that I like to talk about because I feel like those are things that everybody can benefit from, even if you don't go on to be a voice actor. Um, but I think that's probably the biggest mistake, in my opinion. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I think people come in with the idea that if I have a wonderful voice, I have a career. And I have told a lot of people the more beautiful your voice, the faster bad acting shows up. And I run into people all the time, sometimes who know better, they know intellectually better, they have heard it and are trying to live out of it, but they've been told for years, wow, you have an amazing voice, you have an amazing voice. So there's a part of them that puts on those headphones and they're listening to their voice instead of communicating whatever it is they're trying to communicate. And sometimes a beautiful voice becomes a crutch for acting. So that is an area. And the idea of uh, how I say it as opposed to how I feel it is what's going to make the difference in my booking or not. Um, and I trying to get people to do what actually should be the easiest thing. Just be yourself. How do you feel about this? Give me that. Give me that. And so many people are trying to make sure that they're being this professional voice that nobody wants to pay attention to anymore. We just don't believe it. Let's see. I've got a comment here from Galena White. I've heard the e-learning can be very lucrative. At what point can you request $10,000 for a narration explainer or e-learning project?
At what point can you
Have you reached that point yet?
have had a $10,000 yes? Uh, if it,
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
um, So, with e-learning, you're charging, especially like Dave mentioned, there's a difference between union and non-union, but there are standard rates even for non-union. So if you're pricing it out, if you're doing $1,000 per finished hour, then you can charge $10,000 when you get to 10 finished hours.
Hmm. Wow. Okay. One of the things you mentioned early on, talking about your career, flip the camera so now we're side by side. One of the things you mentioned early on, uh, that when you went on your big push to find clients, that you have clients now that you got then. Um, Tell me, why do you think that is? I mean, besides the fact that you're good at what you do you think there's a reason those businesses keep working with you? I have some thoughts on that, but I want to see what you have to say.
Well, a lot of e-learning is by nature repeat work because if again, to go back to the benefits example, there you have to update those every year. They change every year. So it's easy for those clients to keep coming back to the same voice talent. So if they're just updating a course, then they can continue to use that
The same
client,
voice, they have
the same
continuity.
voice. But I also like to have, I mentioned how the emails that I sent were personable, and I like to have relationships with my e-learning clients.
So, and define that, because one of the things people hear all the time is, well, write that letter, but make sure it's brief. So, how do you develop that personal relationship with this person that perhaps you never ever meet, and your entire relationship is email, maybe a few phone calls, and billing them?
I think it almost goes back to what you said about this. This should be the easiest thing is to be yourself, and you have to remember that your clients are people, and so you can, you know, have you. And I'm not asking you personally, but people who have e-learning clients, have you emailed them in the last few months and asked how they're doing and how they're holding up and what's going on in their world, if there's anything you can help with?
Yeah. And that, as you said just there, is there anything you can help with? Often people in voiceover, trying to get a career started, get a little antsy, um, because you are not going to book the majority of things you audition for. It's just the nature of the business. But it's tied to our incomes. So a lot of people get antsy. Gee, am I going to work? Am I going to work? And start letting that nervousness, that antsiness, uh, come out and start asking for work instead of offering their services. And I think one of the things you mentioned early on, I don't know if you meant to mention it like that, but you said, I offer my services. And I think you just gave a great bit of wisdom that we could all learn from. Stay in touch with your clients. If you haven't heard from somebody in a while, not necessarily to ask them for work or nudge them into work. Yes, that's an outcome that you want, but let them know you're thinking about them. Maybe tell them some things about you that are good going on, and wish them well, and you look forward to helping them with that project whenever. Uh, One of the things I've discovered, I do a little bit of narration. I've got some e-learning clients. One that is huge in the business, and I couldn't live on the money that I make doing that because it's not often enough. But it's every month or so. I'm in doing some children's books, some educational things, um, and it's steady. And were I focused in that direction and had a number of clients like that, I could see how that would be great business. I was having a conversation the other day with a buddy of mine who, he's on there now. John Groves, how you doing, Johnny? And we were talking about the idea of repeat business. It's wonderful when you get that one-off national commercial and make a nice big fat check, and then it runs for a while. But maybe after a cycle or so, it's gone away, and you're not seeing that money anymore. Whereas a client who has to come back month after month, year after year. That's how you build a career, by adding those. Um, let's see, another question here from somebody else. Hello, both of you. By the way, Monsieur Fennoy, I forgot to mention that I've used your Oh, wait a minute. I'm reading this off my phone. I've used your teachings in an audition for a small part on a Netflix gig, and they told me never audition again. No, and I ended up having the main role for the whole session as the French voice dubbing the main character, which will be released worldwide in a few days. Yes, I do intend to celebrate this the right way, meaning I won't be humanly available for any voice work 2 days after the celebration, as recovery will be necessary. Thank you again, Dave. For me, one of the most gratifying things in the world is somebody that I have taught, I've shared some information with, that finds success with it. Let me ask you, how many students do you have now?
I have, well, it depends on how you define students, because there are
And
people who
as
have,
I asked that question, I thought, if somebody asked me, I couldn't tell you because I don't really keep a count in my head, but, there's a bunch and they come and go, come back and go back. But what's the core of what you teach?
yeah, well, going back to the student thing, I actually don't teach one-on-one voiceover coaching. So I refer people to other coaches for specific one-on-one training, but I do share about my personal experiences, and I share about e-learning in particular,
Mm-hmm.
and listening skills, and entrepreneurship. These are all things that light me up and make me happy, and I enjoy sharing those things with other people. One of my courses talks about business plans, and a lot of that is mindset. And you talked about marketing and offering versus asking, and I think there's a lot of mindset shift that has to happen for voice talent to get to that point where they're comfortable doing it, but also in a point where they aren't needy. Because if
Yeah.
you're needy and coming at it from a place of being needy, that comes through in your auditions, it comes through in your outreach, your communication. So there's a lot of it that has to do just about mindset shift. And those are the things that I like to talk about. And I feel like they're the things that are really, really helpful for success, because you can learn the techniques, but if you don't have that kind of backbone of your business,
Mm-hmm.
your business mindset, and your philosophy of service, then
Something I saw on your website, you said, do you have a day for planning? I think you thought, oh, Sundays, just kind of the beginning of the week. That's a day for planning. How do you plan your week, and how much of it is, oh, I've got this job I've got to do, I'm going to do it at such and such a time, or these are the letters, these are the emails that I have to get out. How did you plan your career, and what's your advice for people who want to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, so what I do right now is actually looking around to see if my planner was in here. I have an analog planner that I use, and then I have an app that I use for a daily routine. So I go in and I have certain things that I do every day, reading, and I don't get to all of these all the time, but I've got gratitude writing, meditation, planning my calendar, naming a top priority
Wait,
for the day.
whoa, back up. Gratitude writing?
Yes,
What is gratitude writing?
writing what I'm thankful for.
Ah, okay. It's interesting. I don't do gratitude writing, but I try to live in gratitude. I do my very best to live in gratitude, because I think it's much more powerful for us than complaint and worry. And sometimes, as human beings, we become so worried about things that we can't control, or things that seem out of control for us, that we fail to take that time to look around and go, wow, I'm living in a great house. I have a nice car. People love me. I have friends. I ate today. All those things that we should be grateful for, instead of concentrating on whatever's negative. But good. Keep going. So gratitude and your planning and
Hmm. Yeah, so that's kind of what it looks like daily right now. I will say that's new because I have young kids. And so when my kids were really young, it was all I could do to get up and make it to the booth to, in time to do my auditions. So it's fairly new territory, probably in the last year that I've been able to have more planned quiet time in the mornings.
Mhm.
But it's been really nice. As far as how I planned my career, I feel like a lot of it was forging, maybe. Like when I started off auditioning, I would just whatever I could get, that's what I would do.
Mhm.
And then I made the conscious decision that I didn't want to be just dependent on auditions, and I wanted the type of business where I could have, relationships with people, and that's when I started doing marketing. Well, then I made the conscious decision I want to book some promo work, and I started training, and I did a year's worth of promo training for the sole purpose of learning how to do more promo.
Well, yeah,
And
can I ask you who you worked with?
sure, Harry Dunn.
Okay. Don't know Harry, but I was going to say I know some really good guys and
Yeah.
some good women. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, I'll take recommendations. I love coaching and learning new things. But there were points in my career where I decided I want to try this. I want to try this, and not try this. I want to book in this. And so I would purposefully seek out the people who could help me. And now we first met a few years ago, Elaine, I think, like you
Hmm.
mentioned.
Yeah.
But it's interesting timing that now I'm on your Facebook Live because this is my year of animation. So I'm
Ah.
learning more about animation.
Well, it's funny because that was a few years ago, and I remember at the time, I think I just started doing this or was planning to do it, and I was so impressed. And I still want to ask you about word count and how do you bill by the word, but I was so impressed with the business, with the bones and details of how you build a business in narration, how you bill, how you find clients, what you do with phone numbers. I mean, you were very detailed, and I think I'd love to get her on and talk to her uh, about that aspect of this business because it's not, I think, what most people think about in voiceover. A
It's
lot
not
of
glamorous.
Yeah, it's not glamorous. Um, People, I think, are drawn to, oh, there's a lot of money in promo and cartoons and wow, video games. I love those and national commercials, and yet there's actually more work in narration than any place else. So uh, what you are doing, I think, is helping a lot of people. And speaking of, how do you charge by the word? How do you count all those words? I know Word has a word count.
Hmm.
Is that where you start?
Yes, I actually use Google Docs,
Mm-hmm.
and you can go to tools and do word count. What you have to watch out for with e-learning and word count is, first of all, a lot of times they'll have some, maybe what's going on screen
Mm-hmm.
also on that same document. So you have to make sure you remove everything that isn't actual voiceover. So anything that you're not going to be saying, you have to take it out of the doc, or otherwise you're charging for the things that you're not saying. And then you look out for the things like when they put, I did something for a credit union recently, and there were so many digits and dollar amounts. So, 1,543 dollars and 62 cents. Word might count that as one word because it's all,
Yeah.
and there aren't any spaces. That's several words. $1,562.55. You're saying those words. So there you go in and
So don't cheat yourself
right.
by saying, "Oh, it's just a number." No, it's a
Hmm.
bunch of words. Let me ask you
Right.
this because I have a particular preference. When people write out the number or just show you the number as a number, which do you prefer?
I prefer seeing the number.
Yeah, me too. So you're not crazy.
I think it makes sense that they're right. They feel like they're doing you an added service by writing it out. but that's not how I'm used to seeing
Yeah.
numbers. And so
I think sometimes this happens more in commercials because the word count for time, I got a 30-second commercial. I can only fit so many words in, so they'll write it out, and maybe they think they're doing you a favor too. But I'd rather see the number myself. So now I have no idea what do people pay per word for documents for narration.
yeah, for e-learning, 25 cents is about right in the middle. You can get 35. I think that if you look at several rate guides, you might see as much as 45. And the thing of it is though, because a lot of this is non-union, you will get clients that are asking for five. We'll pay you 5 cents a word. And in my opinion, that's you say no.
Yeah, yeah.
You can counter with another, something higher. But it all comes down to also the way you're running your business, because if there's a company that is giving you a ton of work and it's bulk, you can give them a deal.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's you bulk. Yeah, you always give them a deal because they're giving you a deal. Um, when did you get to the point you could say, "Oh no, you're going to have to pay me more than that"?
Probably. So I joined the union about a little over a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I probably got that had some obvious repercussions. But even prior to that, I think it was probably when my schedule got full enough that I was like, oh, actually, I remember writing
I don't
emails
have
to
to put
clients.
up with this mess no more.
I remember writing emails to clients, and yeah, it was exactly. I don't have to do this anymore. So you're either, and in a very obviously polite way, and especially these are people that I had relationships with for a while. But you explain it and they understand, and you ask if they can come up to this point, and some of them did, and some of them couldn't.
Yeah, but then you picked up other business.
Hmm.
Absolutely. A couple things. One, cousin of mine, Lavelle Fennoy, East St. Louis, saying hello. How you doing, Lavelle? And Luc de Villars, our French friend. Question, dear Carrie, and for you, Dave, too. How and when did you know that you had matured enough for doing some teaching for your fellow VOs and VAs? So, how far along in your career did you feel comfortable enough, mature enough to start sharing information? You said, I'm not really a teacher, but I think the things on your site would say otherwise, whether you want to own that or not. But you are teaching people. When did you feel mature enough, comfortable enough in what you're doing that you wanted to share?
I feel like I always want to share. And I feel like when I first started, it wasn't under the umbrella of teaching. I had a WordPress site, and WordPress is a blog, and I blogged about what I was doing.
Oh, okay. It was just I'm keeping the world abreast of me. Uh, I wanted to see if there are any more really good questions. Oh, Alan, Carrie's e-learning course was a huge game changer for me. Highly recommend it.
Thanks, Alan.
Yeah. And a few other people have had some nice things to say about you. And I'm just happy that I could finally uh, get you on here. Before we wrap this up, is there anything you would like to talk about that? You know what? I'm just gonna go there. You're a black woman. Listening to your demo, sometimes you kind of know, sometimes you don't. There have been a lot of white actors who've been playing black roles on some very hefty cartoons recently that have given up their jobs. Um, do you sell yourself as black person, not black person, just American person, just generic voice?
Yeah, when I first got started, I had people who were advising me in different ways, and some that would say, don't put your picture on anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided I wanted to be who I am. And because again, voiceover, for me, it's personal. And so I'm sure there are repercussions. There are people who see my picture and expect me to sound a certain way. And then there are people who I'm maybe surprised when they see what I look like. Who knows?
Been there.
Um, so I I bill myself as a voice actor, and my agents know what I look like. So I do get copy for
For
diverse
yeah, yeah.
roles, and I audition for things that I'm a fit for.
Yeah. Just to throw kind of a 2 cents in, because I've had that back and forth, or hey, can you make it blacker? And I'm like, I don't know what you mean by blacker. We
Hmm.
we don't all sound the same, so give me a little more description. Would you ever ask a white actor to make it whiter? Um, but I always told my agents, look, I want to be a voice. I'm happy to do work directed at the black market, but I want to do work directed at the general market as well. Um, and I think as a society, we have to grow up to the point where we understand that there are many American voices. There are many voices with a little different song, little different feel to them that speak to all Americans. So I applaud you for being you and not trying to be something that you're not, and showing up for the world as yourself.
Thanks, Dave.
And with that, I guess I'm going to let you go. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I've been very excited to talk to you. I think the kind of work that you're doing, although, it's not showing up, in cartoons and video games, but it's important work and people need to know about it, and how to work in that world. And just glad to know you're there and doing it. And enjoy your family in Kansas City. Stay
Thanks, Dave.
healthy, all of you, and we will talk again. All the best.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Night.
And, well, I hit the wrong button. I'm such a klutz. Anyway, well, that's going to wrap up Ask Dave Fennoy Anything for this Wednesday. Once again, I want to thank my guest, Carrie Olsen, and I will see you next week when Elaine Clark is my guest. She wrote one of the very first books on voiceover back in... and when I started training in San Francisco back in the day, she was one of the people that you wanted to train with. So we'll see you next weekend. Same bat time, same bat station, 6 p.m. Pacific. Ask Dave Fennoy Anything, Facebook Live. See you guys. Bye-bye.